Hey there, Justin Hewlett here from V&E Wealth Management. Thanks a lot for tuning in today. In this video, I want to talk about Roth IRAs versus traditional IRAs. This is a question I get from a lot of people. Which one makes more sense for me, Justin? What's going to have the biggest impact? So to help answer these, I'm going to go through each one of these, talk about some of the pros and cons, the good and bad of them, and then discuss some potential ideas or answers for you as an investor. So let's start with the Roth IRA. Roth IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. Now keep in mind, a Roth or a traditional IRA is not an investment itself. The investment is what you actually purchase. So it could be a mutual fund, it could be a stock, it could be an ETF, it could be a bond. Any sort of investment that has any sort of growth associated with it is what you're purchasing. The Roth is the label or the wrapper they put around it so Uncle Sam knows how to treat it from a tax perspective. What that means is that if it says Roth IRA on your statement, Uncle Sam knows that you put that money in on an after-tax basis. The money in that account grows on a tax-deferred basis. And withdrawals from this account are treated, as long as you follow the rules, are treated tax-free. So if you said, I'm going to make an example up here, Tesla stock, and that money, you put some money into it. As that money grew, as that stock grew in value, you don't pay tax. And then when you take the money out in retirement, you don't pay any tax on that. Now again, fun fact, this was created by William Roth, a senator from Delaware, and these were created back in 1997. So they're relatively new. How you get money into a Roth IRA, there's 4 different ways. First is a contribution to a Roth IRA, and this is the most popular. This is where you take money that's already been taxed, and you put money into a Roth IRA. Now, under the age of 50, you can put $6,000. Over the age of 50, you can put $7,000. Now, there are certain income limitations that Uncle Sam imposes on you. If you're single and make more than $144,000 per year, Uncle Sam will not allow you to put into a Roth IRA. If you're married and make over $214,000, they will not allow you to put money into a Roth IRA. The other way is transfer. So if you have a Roth IRA somewhere else, you can move it to another Roth IRA. You can always move them back and forth. You're not stuck in one. You can do a rollover, which is if you had a Roth 401k, which is becoming popular at employers, you can roll it from your Roth 401k into a Roth IRA. And the last one, which is becoming more and more popular, which is one I'm going to have another video just on this topic, is doing a Roth conversion, which means taking money from a pre-tax traditional IRA and moving it into an after-tax Roth IRA. What that means and what happens is you pay tax in the year you do that conversion on the amount you converted over, and as long as it gets over to that Roth IRA and you follow the rules, you'd have tax-free distributions on that money when you go to use it. Withdrawals from a Roth. So now that you've funded and it's sit there and it's growing, hopefully, how do you take money out, or what does it mean? What does it mean? So withdrawals from a Roth IRA, as long as they're qualified, as long as you follow the rules, are on a tax-free basis. You have to be age 59 and a half in order to access the money inside your retirement plan, and it has to be sitting there for at least 5 years. The biggest thing that I talk to people about that many people overlook is there are no required minimum distributions on Roth IRAs, which means Uncle Sam is never going to force you to take money out of the Roth IRA. So you can let it sit there for potentially as long as you want. If you were to pass away and have money in a Roth IRA, that money would go to your heirs as well, tax-free. So this is a great estate planning technique for people who say, you know what, maybe I've done well in my life and I'm going to pass money on. If I'm going to pass this money, it usually makes more sense to pass it in a Roth IRA because it's going to be tax-free to your heirs. Now let's talk about a traditional IRA. So a traditional IRA is almost exactly the opposite of a Roth. It is an individual retirement account. Money goes into is funded in a traditional IRA with pre-tax dollars. It grows on a tax-deferred basis, similar to a Roth IRA. Withdrawals from the account are subject to ordinary income tax. Now, there are some exclusions and some exceptions to this that you can have, that you can take money out not to pay potentially some penalties on the money. How you get money in a traditional IRA, very similar to a Roth. You can make contributions, regular or spousal. So same as a Roth, if you're maybe a husband and wife and one of the two partners is not working anymore, the working spouse can contribute money into the non-working spouse's IRA or Roth IRA on their behalf. There are income limitations as well. If you have a retirement plan at your employer and you make $68,000 or less, you can deduct that IRA contribution off on your tax return. If you're married and make under $109,000, you can deduct that as well. If you do not have a retirement plan, no matter your income, you put money into a traditional IRA, you can deduct that on your tax return. You can transfer it, which means you can move money from one IRA to the other. You're not stuck in one. And the other one is rollover. So many people are very familiar with this. This is taking money from your 401k and moving it over to a traditional IRA. Many people do that because they might have a limited amount of access to investments in their 401k and they want to move it to a traditional IRA, which gives them potentially more access to funds or investments that they want to utilize for themselves. Withdrawals from a traditional IRA are treated the exact opposite as a Roth IRA. You have to be age 59 and a half. Withdrawals are subject to ordinary income tax. So in the year you take that money out, you pay tax on that. A big deterrent is the required minimum distributions. And this is something that a lot of people overlook or don't really understand the impact of it. But when you're age 72, Uncle Sam will force you to take money out of your IRAs. And let's say, I'll give you an example of this. You're 72, you're taking $10,000 a year out of your account. There's a calculation that is done, and let's say the government says your required minimum distribution is $20,000. And you say, well, that's okay, I'm taking 10, I'm good, I don't need that other $10,000, I don't need that. You can keep it, I'll keep it in the account. Uncle Sam will say, too bad, you have to take that $20,000 out no matter what. If you do not take that amount out, you are subject to a 50% tax on the amount you didn't take out. So that $10,000 you didn't take out, you still have to take it out, and then you owe a $5,000 penalty. So these required minimum distributions are a huge deal and something I think a lot of people really overlook. And then if you pass away with money in a traditional IRA, that money is passed on to your heirs. They have to pay tax on those dollars when they take the money out. The biggest takeaways is I tell people there's no wrong answer to these two. If you're saving, whether you're doing it in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, that's a good thing. The key component to look at and the key takeaway is, to me, what tax bracket are you going to be when you touch this money? If you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement, then it makes sense to put money into a Roth IRA today. If you're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, you would want to put money in a traditional IRA. So if you were in a high tax bracket now, you say, I'm going to take that deduction, and then when I'm in a lower tax bracket in retirement, I'm going to pull that money out and pay less in tax. The key concern with that is a lot of people underestimate what they're going to spend in retirement and what their expenses are going to be. So many people think when they sit down with them, they say, oh, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, just no problem. And when I actually sit down and run their expenses and run their tax situation for them, they might be in the same, if not maybe potentially higher tax bracket in retirement, because many people nowadays are living the same exact lifestyle or very similar lifestyles in retirement than they were in their working years. So the thing to look at is sit down with an investment professional, sit down with a CPA, analyze your income in retirement, analyze your expenses, and see what bottom line it means to your tax situation. Therefore, you can make the call on which one of these might fit best for you from a financial perspective, and really look at it over the long term, not just in today. Is a traditional IRA going to be best today because it lowers my tax bracket? Potentially, but look over the long term, what's going to have the biggest impact for your long-term retirement. So again, I hope you liked this video. Many more on these to come, especially to do with that idea of Roth conversion. That's a big, huge thing that most people are missing the boat on. I'm going to have another video about that. If you liked what we talked about, please contact us. Either give us a call, shoot us an email, let us know. If you want more information on these, again, get a hold of us, call, email. Please click like and subscribe on these videos. We really appreciate that. We hope to hear from you soon. Hope you have a great day.